Most people who eventually face kidney failure never think it will happen to them. They eat fruit. They try to be healthy. They believe they're making smart choices until one routine blood test quietly changes everything. If you eat fruit every day, especially if a doctor has ever told you your creatinine is slightly elevated or your kidney function is something to keep an eye on, you need to hear this carefully. Because some of the most common fruits in American kitchens today are silently pushing struggling kidneys closer to a dangerous edge. I'm Dr. Richard Hale, and I want to be very clear from the beginning. This isn't about fear, and it's not about giving up healthy foods. It's about a serious blind spot that I see over and over again in people who are genuinely trying to do the right thing. When kidney function declines, the body loses its ability to safely remove potassium. And when potassium builds up, the threat isn't gradual. It can be sudden, severe, and life-threatening. High potassium doesn't always cause pain. It doesn't always make you feel sick. In many cases, the first warning sign is a dangerous heart rhythm, a sudden collapse, or an emergency room visit no one expected. I've worked with patients who felt perfectly fine in the morning and were told by evening that dialysis was now part of the conversation. But here's the critical part, and this is why you should stay with me. This situation is often preventable. When you understand which fruits overload weakened kidneys and which fruits actually reduce inflammation and ease the kidney's workload, you gain control. Control over your lab numbers, control over your risk, control over where your health is headed. In the next few minutes, I'll show you 3 fruits that quietly damage compromised kidneys and 3 safer alternatives that can support kidney function instead. These aren't trends or opinions. They're based on physiology, clinical experience, and real patient outcomes. What you're about to learn could change the direction of your health sooner than you think. The real problem isn't fruit itself. The real problem is what happens when kidneys begin to fail quietly and daily habits don't change with them. Most people think kidney disease announces itself loudly, with pain, clear symptoms, or obvious warning signs. But in reality, it often starts silently, right in the middle of a routine that feels completely normal. I've seen this pattern repeat again and again. People come in confused and frustrated. They tell me, "Doctor, I eat clean. I don't eat junk. I have fruit every day." And they mean it. Many of them start their mornings with fruit because they were taught it's heart-healthy, natural, and safe. What they don't realize is that once kidney function drops, the rules change, quietly but dramatically. Here's what's happening inside the body. Healthy kidneys constantly filter excess minerals from your blood, especially potassium. But as kidney function declines, that filter weakens. Potassium begins to accumulate, not over years, but sometimes over weeks. And the dangerous part is this. High potassium doesn't always make you feel sick. You can feel fine while your heart is being pushed toward an unstable rhythm. Clinically, this is called hyperkalemia, and it's one of the most common and underestimated triggers of cardiac emergencies in kidney patients. Studies from major U.S. medical centers show that potassium imbalance is involved in a significant percentage of sudden cardiac events among people with reduced kidney function. Not because they ignored their health, but because they followed outdated advice. This is why so many people are shocked when a doctor suddenly says, "We need to talk about dialysis," or "Your heart rhythm is unstable." It feels sudden, but the damage has been building quietly, meal after meal, choice after choice. And here's the key transition I want you to remember. If the problem were simply bad kidneys, there would be very little you could do. But the real issue is mismatched habits. Habits that can be corrected. Because once you understand which foods overload struggling kidneys and which ones ease the burden, the entire trajectory can change. But understanding the problem alone isn't enough, because the next step is knowing exactly which fruits help and which ones quietly make things worse. Once people understand that the problem isn't fruit itself, but how weakened kidneys handle certain nutrients, The next question becomes very simple. What can you eat safely? And this is where many people are surprised, because one of the most powerful fruits for struggling kidneys isn't exotic, expensive, or trendy. It's something most people walk past every day without a second thought. Apples. I want to tell you about Margaret, a woman in her early 70s who came to me exhausted, swollen, and frightened after being told dialysis might be in her near future. She had already cut back on salt and processed food, but her creatinine stayed high. One of the first changes we made wasn't dramatic at all. We removed high-potassium fruits and replaced her morning snack with a simple apple. No supplements, no extreme diet, just one consistent change. Here's why that mattered. Apples are rich in soluble fiber, especially pectin. Pectin works like a sponge in the digestive tract, binding waste products before they ever reach the bloodstream. That means fewer toxins for already stressed kidneys to filter. Research has shown that diets higher in soluble fiber are associated with lower levels of nitrogenous waste and improved metabolic balance in people with kidney disease. Just as important, apples are naturally low in potassium compared to many popular fruits. A medium apple contains roughly 150 milligrams, which is generally considered a safer range for people with reduced kidney function. On top of that, apples provide polyphenols, plant compounds that reduce inflammation and help protect the delicate blood vessels inside the kidneys. Margaret didn't notice the change overnight, but within weeks her energy improved, swelling decreased, and her lab numbers finally began moving in the right direction. Not because apples are magic, but because they reduce the workload on kidneys that are already doing too much. One small detail matters here. Apples are most effective when eaten with the skin on, washed well, because that's where much of the fiber and antioxidants live. Simple choices repeated consistently are often what make the biggest difference. But apples are only the beginning, because the next fruit goes even deeper when it comes to protecting kidney tissue itself. And that's where things get truly interesting. If apples help reduce the workload on your kidneys, the next fruit goes one step deeper. It helps protect the kidney tissue itself. This is where blueberries quietly stand out, and most people seriously underestimate how powerful they are. I remember a patient named Linda who asked me a simple question after changing her diet. "Doctor, if my kidneys are already damaged, can food really protect what's left?" At the time, her numbers were unstable, and she was afraid every lab test would bring bad news. One of the changes we made was adding a small serving of blueberries several times a week, not as a cure, but as protection. Blueberries are loaded with compounds called anthocyanins. That deep blue-purple color isn't just visual, it's biochemical. Anthocyanins are potent antioxidants that help neutralize oxidative stress, one of the main drivers of kidney damage progression. When kidney cells are under constant stress, inflammation accelerates scarring. Blueberries help slow that process. Research supported by kidney health organizations has shown that diets rich in anthocyanin-containing berries are associated with improved markers of kidney filtration, including more stable GFR levels and reduced protein leakage in the urine. That matters because protein in the urine is one of the clearest signs that kidney filters are under attack. Another important detail is potassium. Unlike many popular fruits, blueberries are naturally low in potassium when eaten in reasonable portions. That makes them a safer option for people who need antioxidant protection without risking dangerous electrolyte spikes. Fresh or frozen blueberries both work, as long as there's no added sugar. Sugar adds its own strain to kidneys and blood vessels, something we want to avoid entirely. Linda didn't feel a dramatic change in a day or two. What she noticed over time was stability, fewer swings, fewer surprises, and less fear every time labs were drawn. That's the real value here: slowing damage, protecting function, and buying time. But even blueberries aren't the whole picture, because the next fruit surprises many people. It looks harmless, tastes sweet, and yet it plays a very specific role that most kidney patients never hear about. until now. If blueberries work quietly at the cellular level, strawberries do something just as important, but in a way people can actually feel. This is the fruit many kidney patients overlook because it seems too simple, too sweet, almost too ordinary to matter. But strawberries play a unique role that bridges protection and circulation, and that makes a real difference. I once worked with a man named James who complained that even on days when his labs looked stable, he felt sluggish, heavy, and short of breath when walking short distances. His kidney function hadn't collapsed, but his circulation was poor, and inflammation was constantly simmering under the surface. One of the dietary changes we introduced was fresh strawberries, eaten a few times a week in controlled portions. Here's why that mattered. Strawberries are rich in vitamin C, manganese, and a wide range of polyphenols that help reduce systemic inflammation. Chronic inflammation doesn't just affect joints or muscles. It directly damages blood vessels that supply the kidneys. When circulation improves, kidneys receive oxygen more efficiently, and filtration becomes less stressful. Studies from large U.S. research institutions have shown that regular strawberry consumption is associated with improved endothelial function, meaning healthier blood vessel lining. For kidney patients, this is critical. Better blood flow supports kidney resilience and helps slow functional decline. Strawberries also contain antioxidants that reduce oxidative stress, a key contributor to kidney scarring over time. Another important point is potassium balance. Strawberries contain moderate potassium levels, making them safer than many fruits when eaten mindfully. A small serving, about 8 medium strawberries, fits well into many kidney-friendly plans without triggering dangerous spikes. Fresh strawberries are best, and they're most effective when eaten plain, without added sugar or syrups that strain both kidneys and blood sugar control. James didn't just notice better energy, he felt steadier, less inflamed, more confident moving through his day. That's what this fruit does. It supports the systems around the kidneys, not just the kidneys themselves. But here's where things start to turn, because right after these helpful fruits come the ones that quietly undo all this progress. And the first one shocks almost everyone. Right after talking about fruits that protect your kidneys, this is where many people feel confused, even resistant. Because the next fruit isn't exotic, processed, or obviously unhealthy. It's something most Americans grew up eating and were told was one of the best choices you could make. Bananas. I can't count how many patients have said the same thing to me. Doctor, I eat bananas because they're natural. They're good for my heart. They give me energy. One man, Robert, was eating 2 bananas every single day. He exercised lightly, avoided junk food, and believed he was doing everything right. Yet his potassium levels kept rising, and he began experiencing heart palpitations that scared him enough to seek help. Here's what was happening. A single medium banana contains over 500 milligrams of potassium. For someone with healthy kidneys, that's usually not a problem. But when kidney function declines, potassium is no longer cleared efficiently. Instead of being removed, it accumulates in the bloodstream, quietly pushing levels toward a dangerous threshold. Clinically, once potassium rises above about 6.0 millimoles per liter, the risk becomes serious. High potassium interferes with the electrical signals that control your heartbeat. That's why symptoms can include weakness, tingling, irregular heart rhythms, and in severe cases, sudden cardiac arrest. Major U.S. medical institutions have repeatedly identified hyperkalemia as a leading cause of emergency complications in kidney patients. What makes bananas especially dangerous is how easily they slip into daily routines. They're convenient, cheap, and often added without thought into smoothies, breakfasts, or snacks, sometimes multiple times a day. That repeated exposure is what turns a healthy habit into a hidden risk. When Robert removed bananas from his diet, his potassium levels dropped within weeks, and the palpitations stopped. Nothing else changed. That's how powerful this adjustment can be. But bananas are only the first surprise, because the next fruit looks even more innocent, is often consumed as a drink, and delivers potassium faster than most people realize. And that's where the danger escalates. If bananas quietly raise potassium over time, oranges take the risk a step further. Because most people don't eat them, they drink them. And that single difference changes everything. I want you to picture a typical morning. A glass of orange juice feels refreshing, light, and healthy. It's been marketed that way for decades. One of my patients, Linda, had been drinking orange juice every morning for over 30 years. She didn't see it as a habit, it was a ritual. When her kidney function began to decline, she never questioned it, until her potassium levels started climbing without any clear explanation. Here's what most people don't realize. A medium orange contains around 250 milligrams of potassium, which might sound manageable, but an 8-ounce glass of orange juice can contain nearly double that. And the real problem isn't just the amount, it's the speed. When you juice oranges, you strip away fiber and concentrate potassium into liquid form. That potassium enters your bloodstream fast, all at once, without the natural braking system that whole fruit provides. From a clinical standpoint, this creates sharp spikes in blood potassium, especially in people whose kidneys can't keep up. Studies consistently show that liquid sources of potassium are absorbed more rapidly than solid foods, increasing the risk of sudden electrolyte imbalance. That's why orange juice shows up so often in dietary reviews of kidney patients with unexplained hyperkalemia. When Linda stopped drinking orange juice and switched to safer fruit options, her potassium levels dropped back into a safer range within weeks. What surprised her most was how much better she felt. Less heavy, less foggy, more stable throughout the day. She wasn't losing energy, she was losing overload. This is where many people make a dangerous assumption, that if whole fruit can be risky, juice must be safer. In kidney health, it's often the opposite. Liquids deliver faster, harder hits that stressed kidneys can't buffer. But as risky as oranges and orange juice can be, the next fruit goes even further. It's praised as a superfood, loaded into smoothies and trendy meals, and it delivers more potassium per serving than almost anything else people eat. And that's where the stakes rise again. If orange juice delivers potassium fast, avocados deliver it in overwhelming amounts, and that's where many people unknowingly cross into truly dangerous territory. This is the fruit that causes the most pushback when I mention it, because avocados are everywhere and praised as one of the healthiest foods on the planet. I remember James, a man in his late 60s who came in worried about sudden muscle weakness and episodes of confusion. He had been trying to lose weight and improve his heart health, so he added avocado to almost every meal, half an avocado with breakfast, slices at lunch, and guacamole at dinner. He thought he was doing himself a favor. His potassium level told a very different story. Here's the hard truth. A single medium avocado contains close to 1,000 milligrams of potassium. That's nearly double what you get from a banana. For someone with healthy kidneys, the body can usually handle it. But for someone with reduced kidney function, that amount is simply too much. The kidneys can't clear it efficiently, so potassium accumulates, silently increasing the risk of electrical disturbances in the heart. From a medical perspective, this is why avocados are often restricted or even avoided entirely in kidney-friendly diets. Nephrology guidelines frequently recommend limiting avocado intake to very small portions, sometimes just 1 or 2 tablespoons per week, if potassium levels are already elevated. Yet most people consume far more than that in a single sitting without realizing the risk. When James removed avocados from his daily routine, his potassium levels normalized within weeks, and the weakness resolved. What shocked him most was how quickly his body responded once the overload stopped. No new medications, no drastic interventions, just removing one healthy food that didn't match his kidney's capacity anymore. This is what makes avocados so dangerous for kidney patients. They're nutrient-dense, trendy, and consumed generously, often without any sense of limits. The danger isn't intention, it's excess. But even after fixing fruit choices, many people still struggle, because food alone isn't the final piece. There are daily habits, completely unrelated to diet, that can either protect your kidneys or quietly push them closer to failure. And that's where the conversation becomes even more important. After fixing fruit choices, many people expect their kidneys to recover on their own. Sometimes they do, but often progress stalls. And this is where most people get discouraged, because they've changed what's on their plate, yet their numbers still don't move the way they hoped. The truth is, food is only part of the equation. There are daily habits, completely unrelated to diet, that quietly decide whether kidneys get relief or remain under constant strain. I think of a patient named Carol who did everything right with food, but still dealt with swelling and fatigue. What she hadn't changed were the small, invisible habits that affect kidney blood flow, pressure, and filtration throughout the day. Once we addressed those, the improvement finally became noticeable. The first habit is gentle lower back massage. The kidneys sit deep in the lower back, and light, consistent massage improves local circulation. Better blood flow means more oxygen delivery and less ischemic stress on kidney tissue. Even 5 minutes in the morning or before bed can help reduce stiffness and support kidney perfusion over time. The second habit is slow, intentional breathing. Chronic stress raises cortisol and blood pressure, two major drivers of kidney damage. Simple breathing patterns, slow inhale, brief pause, long exhale, activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Clinically, this helps lower blood pressure and reduces the workload on the kidneys. It's not meditation, it's physiology. The third habit is how you drink water. Many people either sip too little or flood their system all at once. Overhydration can worsen swelling and raise blood pressure, while dehydration concentrates toxins. The goal is steady, spaced intake, small amounts throughout the day, adjusted to your doctor's guidance and your urine output. This keeps filtration smooth instead of chaotic. Carol didn't feel different overnight, but within weeks, swelling eased, energy improved, and her labs stabilized. Not because of one miracle trick, but because the body finally stopped fighting constant stress. And now, with food choices corrected and supportive habits in place, there's one final piece that ties everything together. Because understanding how these changes work as a system may determine whether kidney decline slows or continues. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be this: you are not powerless. Kidney problems don't mean your future is already decided, and they certainly don't mean you're just waiting for things to get worse. What you do every single day still matters, and small, informed choices can add up to real change. You've just learned how certain fruits can quietly overload struggling kidneys, and how simple alternatives can ease that burden instead. You've seen that protecting your kidneys isn't about extreme diets or fear. It's about awareness, balance, and consistency. None of this requires perfection. It requires attention, patience, and a willingness to adjust as your body changes. I also want you to know this: if you're watching this and feeling worried, you're not alone. Many people feel anxious when they hear words like creatinine, potassium, or dialysis. That fear is understandable, but fear doesn't have to control your decisions. Knowledge gives you direction, and direction brings calm. If this video helped you understand your kidney health even a little better, do yourself a favor and save it. Having this information on hand can make a difference later, whether for you or for someone you care about who may need it one day. And if you want to keep learning how to protect your kidneys with clear, practical, medically grounded guidance, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. New videos are shared regularly, focused on kidney health, heart safety, and aging well with confidence. Most importantly, hold on to this hope. Kidneys respond when the body is supported, numbers can stabilize, energy can return, and the future doesn't have to be defined by fear or confusion. Every better choice you make today is a message to your body that you're paying attention, and that message matters. Take care of yourself, stay curious, and stay consistent. Your kidneys are working for you every single day. With the right care, you can work for them too.